Angela Angie Marie Samota was born on September 19, 1964 in Alameda, California. She was the youngest of five siblings. Her father, Frank Samota, died less than a year after her birth, leaving her mother, Betty Ruth Samota, to raise their children. From a young age, Angela was known for her intelligence, independence, and outgoing personality. She excelled academically and was determined to pursue a challenging and ambitious career path. Angela enrolled at Southern Methodist University, SMU, in Dallas, Texas, where she majored in computer science and electrical engineering, fields largely dominated by men at the time. She also became a member of the Zeta Tau Alpha sorority and was actively involved in campus life. Friends and classmates described her as vivacious, energetic, and always surrounded by people. Her confidence and warmth made her stand out in any crowd. Angela's living situation was also unique. Her parents had purchased a condo for her off-campus, offering her independence while she studied. There, she lived for a time with her freshman year roommate, Sheila Wysocki. The two developed a strong bond that would later play a pivotal role in reopening Angela's cold case. By all accounts, Angela had a bright future ahead of her. She was working hard in a demanding academic program and maintaining a strong social life. But on the night of October 12, 1984, her promising path would be brutally interrupted by an act of violence that stunned her friends, devastated her family, and left investigators searching for answers. On the evening of October 12, 1984, Angela Samota went out with two friends to enjoy the State Fair of Texas in Dallas. The group included one female friend and a 23-year-old male architect named Russell Buchanan. Angela's boyfriend, Ben McCall, did not join them, reportedly due to an early morning construction shift. After the fair, the group continued their night out at the Rio Room, a recently opened and popular nightclub. Witness accounts described Angela as lively and social, moving from table to table and interacting with other patrons. She appeared to know many people and was engaged in conversation throughout the night. The group left the club shortly after midnight. Angela drove her friends home, first dropping Buchanan off at his apartment on Matilda Street, which was just minutes from her own condo on Amesbury Drive. She then dropped off her female friend. According to Buchanan's later testimony, he returned home and went to sleep immediately. Angela made one more stop that night. She visited her boyfriend, Ben McCall, briefly at his apartment to say goodnight. After returning to her own condo, she called McCall at approximately 1:45 a.m. During the call, she told him there was a man in her home who had asked to use the phone in the bathroom. Uncertain whether the man had entered with her or was already inside, Angela asked McCall to talk to me, then said she would call him right back. She never did. This phone call would be the last known communication from Angela Samota. After Angela Samota ended the 1:45 a.m. call with Ben McCall and failed to call back, McCall grew concerned. He tried calling her again, but there was no answer. Troubled by the silence, he drove to her condo on Amesbury Drive. He knocked repeatedly on the door but received no response. The door was locked. Still uneasy, McCall used his work-issued mobile phone, a rare device at the time, to contact emergency services. The call was placed through a directory assistance operator, who connected him with the Dallas police. Officers arrived at the scene around 2:17 a.m. and forcibly entered the condo. Inside, they discovered a horrifying scene. Angela's body was found on her bed. She was naked, covered in blood, and had clearly suffered a violent attack. The room showed signs of struggle, but there was no sign of forced entry, suggesting she had let her attacker involuntarily. The autopsy revealed that Angela had been raped and stabbed 18 times in the chest. The fatal wounds penetrated her heart, and the nature of the injuries indicated rage and brutality. Investigators also found blood evidence in the bathroom, suggesting that the killer attempted to clean himself before leaving the scene. The discovery of Angela's body marked the beginning of a homicide investigation that would stretch on for decades. The initial facts were brutal and disturbing, Yet the identity of the killer remained unknown. Angela's murder stunned the SMU community and devastated those who knew her. In the days following Angela Samota's murder, investigators focused on the two men known to have seen her last: her boyfriend, Ben McCall, and her friend from that night, Russell Buchanan. Both were considered potential suspects. McCall's late-night call with Angela and his subsequent arrival at her apartment placed him close to the crime scene. Buchanan, the 23-year-old architect who had accompanied Angela and her friend to the state fair and nightclub, was also under scrutiny. Buchanan voluntarily cooperated with the investigation and agreed to take a polygraph test, which he passed. McCall initially declined to take a polygraph, but later provided a DNA sample. Despite their initial suspicions, police found no physical evidence directly linking either man to the crime. No signs of forced entry further complicated the investigation, as it suggested Angela may have willingly allowed her attacker inside. Without a confession, eyewitnesses, or usable forensic technology at the time, investigators had little to work with. The forensic limitations of the 1980s meant DNA evidence could not yet be processed to the standards that would later become available. No suspect could be definitively tied to the scene. The case eventually reached a standstill. With leads exhausted and early suspects eliminated through available testing and inconsistent timelines, the investigation began to lose momentum. Angela's murder remained open, but no charges were filed. For her family and friends, frustration grew as the years passed without justice or answers. The case was slowly pushed into cold case status. From the mid-1980s through the early 2000s, Angela Samota's murder remained unsolved. With no arrests, no new evidence, and no leads, the case quietly faded from public attention. For her family and friends, especially those who had been closest to her during college, the lack of closure was deeply painful. The Dallas Police Department classified the case as a cold case, and for years it remained buried in archives. One of the lingering issues was the status of the rape kit collected at the crime scene. Authorities initially reported that the kit, and other evidence, had been lost during flooding that affected the Dallas Police Department's storage. Without that crucial forensic material, reopening the case seemed unlikely. But Angela's former roommate, Sheila Wysocki, refused to give up. Years after graduating from Southern Methodist University, Wysocki reached out repeatedly to the police department. Her requests were persistent, often ignored, but never completely dismissed. She was determined to get justice for her friend. In time, Wysocki's efforts drew attention. Though the case remained cold for more than 2 decades, the continual pressure she applied eventually forced police to reconsider. Her advocacy sparked a renewed interest that would later prove instrumental in solving the case. While the public remained unaware, behind the scenes, momentum was beginning to build again. Angela's case, once thought unsolvable, was slowly moving back into the light. Sheila Wysocki, Angela Samota's former college roommate and close friend, became the driving force behind the reawakening of the investigation. Motivated by an enduring sense of loss and unresolved injustice, Wysocki transformed her frustration into action. She contacted the Dallas Police Department repeatedly, urging them to revisit the cold case. Her persistence lasted for years. Eventually, her determination paid off, if only because, as she later said, police were so sick and tired of her calls that they agreed to assign someone to the case. In 2006, Detective Linda Crum took on the file. Unlike earlier efforts, Crum approached the case with a fresh perspective and took immediate steps to locate and test any remaining forensic evidence. Surprisingly, the rape kit, once believed to have been destroyed in a flood, was located. It contained preserved biological material including blood, semen, and fingernail samples from the original crime scene. Detective Crum submitted the samples for modern DNA testing, a tool unavailable during the original investigation. In 2008, the results came back with a match: Donald Andrew Best Jr., a previously convicted rapist who had been on parole in 1984 when Angela was murdered. The DNA evidence placed him directly at the crime scene. Sheila Wysocki's refusal to let the case go unsolved was the catalyst behind the renewed investigation. Her decision to become a licensed private investigator was deeply personal and purposeful. Without her persistence, it is possible Angela's murder would have remained unsolved. Her advocacy marked a turning point, shifting the case from dormant to active and giving it new life through science and determination. Donald Andrew Bess Jr. was identified through DNA evidence in 2008 as the man who raped and murdered Angela Samota. At the time of Angela's murder in 1984, Bess was on parole, having been previously convicted in 1978 for aggravated rape and aggravated kidnapping. He had been serving a 25-year sentence but was released early. Following Angela's death, he committed additional violent crimes. In 1985, Bess was convicted again, this time in Harris County, for aggravated rape, aggravated kidnapping, and sexual assault, and sentenced to life in prison. The forensic evidence that linked Bess to Angela included semen, blood, and DNA under her fingernails, all collected during the original crime scene examination. When tested decades later, those samples matched Bess's genetic profile. He was already incarcerated at the time of the match, serving his life sentence for unrelated sexual offenses. During the investigation, authorities uncovered more about Bess's history. His ex-wife testified about the physical abuse she and their child endured during their marriage. Two women who had survived previous assaults by Bess also came forward to share their experiences. Their testimonies, along with the forensic evidence, painted a portrait of a serial predator with a long history of violence against women. Bess had not been on law enforcement's radar in the original investigation of Angela's murder. The lack of forensic technology at the time had kept his identity hidden. The breakthrough in 2008 proved critical. It not only identified him as Angela's killer, but also demonstrated how the use of DNA in cold cases could close gaps that had once seemed insurmountable. With the evidence firmly in place, Bess was formally charged with capital murder. His past, once buried in court records, was now central to the case. In 2010, Donald Andrew Bess Jr. stood trial in Dallas County for the rape and murder of Angela Samota. Although more than 25 years had passed since the crime, the prosecution presented a compelling case grounded in DNA evidence and supported by testimonies that painted a clear pattern of violent behavior. Forensic experts testified that blood and semen recovered from the crime scene matched Bess's DNA profile with scientific certainty. The prosecution also called upon several women who had previously survived Bess's sexual assaults. Their testimonies described similar methods of manipulation, violence, and control, reinforcing the prosecution's argument that Angela's murder was not an isolated act, but part of a broader pattern of predatory behavior. Bess's ex-wife also testified about his abusive conduct during their marriage, adding further credibility to the narrative of sustained violence. Midway through the proceedings, Bess suffered a heart attack and was temporarily hospitalized under guard, delaying the trial for 3 days. Once the trial resumed, the jury heard closing arguments that emphasized the forensic match and consistent witness testimony. The defense did not deny that Bess had a violent past, but questioned the conclusiveness of linking him specifically to Angela's murder. After deliberation, the jury found Bess guilty of capital murder. On June 8, 2010, he was sentenced to death. The court acknowledged the severity of his prior offenses and the brutality of Angela's murder. Though Bess had long been serving a life sentence for previous crimes, this conviction was significant. It brought long-awaited legal justice for Angela's family and friends, affirming the role that modern forensic science played in solving cold cases. After receiving the death penalty in 2010 for the murder of Angela Samota, Donald Andrew Bess Jr. was transferred to the Allen B. Polunsky Unit, Texas's death row facility. Over the next 12 years, Bess remained incarcerated while pursuing a series of appeals. His legal team submitted petitions to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court, all of which were ultimately denied. The conviction and sentence were upheld at every level. During his time on death row, Bess continued to serve out the life sentence he had previously received for separate sexual assault and kidnapping convictions in the 1980s. Though his execution date was never formally set, he remained under maximum security custody while awaiting the outcome of his appeals. On October 8, 2022, Bess died from a heart attack at the age of 74. He passed away in custody, still on death row and never faced execution. 1 year earlier, in 2021, Angela Samota's mother, Betty Ruth, died at the age of 96. She lived to witness the conviction of her daughter's killer, though not his execution. Bess's death marked the quiet end of a long and violent criminal legacy that had haunted families for decades. The resolution of Angela Samota's case became more than a personal story of justice. It marked a significant shift in how cold cases were perceived and pursued. Her murder, once deemed unsolvable, was cracked through advancements in forensic science and the unyielding efforts of a single individual, Sheila Wysocki. By pushing the Dallas Police Department to act, and later becoming a licensed private investigator, Wysocki transformed a dormant file into a reopened case that led to a conviction. Her role in the investigation showed how citizen advocacy could drive institutional change. The success of the Samota case helped spark broader awareness of the importance of DNA evidence in unsolved crimes. It also underscored the need for cold case units in major cities. In 2016, the Dallas Police Department officially reinstated its cold case division, giving new priority to other unsolved homicides. Angela's case became a template for how persistence, technology, and survivor advocacy could combine to deliver overdue justice. Her story was featured on national platforms, including Dateline NBC and Investigation Discovery, bringing public attention to the power of cold case investigations. Angela Samota's memory lives on, not just through the friends and family who knew her, but through the reforms inspired by her case. Today, Sheila Wysocki continues her work as a private investigator, helping other families find answers. Through her relentless efforts and Angela's tragic story, the system was reminded that even long, silent cases can still speak if someone is willing to listen.